Well, that's it. The Aussie tour is done. We are now steps closer to opening day and Bournemouth. And what I'm going to do on this program is recap the Aussie tour, starting with the Leeds game and then working my way towards Manchester United. And if we're going to pair an Australian recap show, we got to go with a nice Aussie Shiraz. This one, Jacob's Creek, is really nice. Great Shiraz because it's aged in whiskey barrels. So it's perfect. Let's review Villa Down Under. Just in footballing terms, and by the way, I do realize in our last video, the crawl down below was going by way too fast. We're still in preseason mode here too, you know. We're building up to regular season form. But in footballing terms, there are only two reasons for preseasons, and they are preparation, physically, mentally, tactically, and evaluation. And that's it. And I can say, based on what I've seen, I'm not there, but I've seen the videos on Villa TV. This group has been stretched and pushed and challenged to the absolute limit. 2-a-day sessions? You might have seen the running video when Steven Gerrard says to, I think it was Big Tim, do you hate my guts right now? Oh, the beep test is awful and the long distance endurance running is terrible. But based on the evidence that I've seen, it looks to me like the freaks of nature on Aston Villa are Ashley Young, Jacob Ramsey, Marvelous Nakamba, and Big Tim, guys who could run 2 games in a day. So this is definitely more volume and more intensity than I think they had last year, and let's hope it shows in those first several games. Against Leeds tactically, Steven Gerrard did kind of confirm and reveal some clues as to what they were working on through the preseason, specifically where they wanted to win the ball, i.e. where did they press, and then what did they want to do when they did win the ball? And this is not revolutionary stuff. Neither is what happens when you lose possession of the ball, but it's how you apply these principles to the individuals, their units, or as the entire group collectively, so everybody is kind of on the same page. And in that game, we saw adjustments and evolutions in the tactics from a quarter of an hour to another. And in the average Premier League game, formation adjustments are happening all the time. Numerous times. I couldn't believe how many times Marcelo Bielsa actually changed tactics within a game. When the Leeds team news came out, everybody just assumed it would be 4-3-3. Phil Coutinho playing on the left of the front three with Watkins and Bailey, and you can't blame people for thinking that given the personnel. I immediately thought of a different formation because I thought with Boubacar Kamara and Douglas Luiz in that lineup, they would be the two in a 4-2-3-1. We know that Steven Gerrard likes to employ his fullbacks, and he has 2 fullbacks that can get forward and will get forward, which does create a problem in the middle of the park that requires 2 holding midfielders, and Boubacar Kamara is a total game changer because he's not just a 6, he's also an 8. He can do so much. That allows little Phil to come into the pocket, and I thought Jacob Ramsey was going to go play wide left, and he's done that before, and he's perfectly capable of it, and he's capable of doing it also from the 8 jersey as well. But it never really panned out this way. Bailey was wide right most of the time, had a nice relationship with Cash. Yes, Phil Coutinho did drop into the pocket, and the whole thing is kind of built around where he operates. But we did see this box of 4 developing, which is really important because this foursome here is a great platform to then release players. And both Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara have shown that they can play the out ball, and with Diego Carlos as well. I think we're going to see a lot of good transitions coming from, that back 4. And I also think we're going to see a lot of different iterations of formations throughout the game, little adjustments here and there. And Villa now seems to have the flexibility to do so, thanks in large part to number 44. just a little one, but I thought Robin Olsen was excellent against Leeds. He made 4 very good saves. The first one comfortable height and all, but he still had to react, and he pushed it out of the danger area with the diving save. Maybe the best one was in the second half on the redirect at the near post, which first of all he blocked, but then he corralled and didn't spill any crumbs. And then how about that cross-come shot that might have taken a deflection? That was going in. He readjusts in midair and then pushes it out of the danger area. We all know Emi Martinez is the de facto starting goalkeeper for Aston Villa. He might even be the captain of the side, but that doesn't mean your backup can't push at every opportunity. And in this Leeds game, I thought Robin Olsen asserted himself, and that's a really positive sign for the whole group. On the constructive, irritating side, Coutinho's penalty was not the best. And then on the rebound, he's looking at the whole goal in front of him as he's running in. He's got the whole right side open. He just needs to tap it in. And instead, he decides to be clever and try to blast it back across the grain. Now, we've had problems from the penalty spot over the last couple of years. And then there's the Ollie Watkins miss. And he was set up beautifully by Coutinho on that break. But we ask ourselves once again, does all that hard work up front, the pressing, the occupation of center backs, the off-the-ball running, does that mitigate missing good chances when they come? Because over the past couple of years, Villa have missed a lot of chances that could have altered the course of games. And please do not tell me it's just the preseason. There is not some kind of magical lever that you can pull and suddenly you're now in Premier League mode. That is not how it works. Preseason is there, not just tactically, not just mentally, not just physically. It is there to establish ruthlessness. And Villa was not ruthless enough in that first half. The second half, let's call it untidy. Leeds had already played Brisbane, so now they were giving the bulk of their squad 60 minutes, so there was continuity in their preseason volume increase, whereas Villa changed everybody at halftime with the exception of a very solid Callum Chambers. There's some choices to be made at center back, and that's good news. Also, Josh Feeney, who knew, stepping in. Didn't put a foot wrong. Kind of looks a little bit like Callum Chambers, a young Callum Chambers, don't you think? Anyway, hard half to measure because it was very disjointed. Good penalty to earn, beautifully converted by Tyrion Lannister. And if you don't see a resemblance between Peter Dinklage and Danny Ings, you need to get your prescription updated. And the best part of the half for me, the whole thing, was Diego Carlos squaring up to Patrick Bamford, who soiled himself when he realized who he was dealing with. Of minor concern to me, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about this right now, but that second half performance from Emi Buendia reminded me an awful lot of some of the performances, especially earlier last season when he had a really difficult time connecting with his teammates. And we know what that looks like. The pass is a little bit behind or he doesn't thread it properly and he screams to the heavens in frustration. He gets frustrated very easily. In fact, in the second half, did you see him running around like a madman, like an animal hunting down people? I've said it before. I think he's too emotional sometimes. He is the most competitive player in this squad. Steven Gerrard said so himself, followed closely by Ezri Konsa. You watch the training videos, he's the one arguing and complaining that somebody's broken the rules or he didn't get his way in a small-sided activity. He's the one who's counting the passes in the rondelles. This guy wants to win everything, and I love that about him. But he's got to pull it back a little bit because I think he is due to have a better season. In fact, over the course of his career, he's always managed to incrementally get better over the course of one season to a next. But I worry when I see trends reemerging. Speaking of worrisome trends, it was a tough old day at the office for Morgan Sanson in that second half. He simply could not keep Aston Villa in possession if he tried. I'm not going to watch a preseason game twice to count how many times a player gives the ball away or loses possession or just knocks it straight into touch because his pass was behind a teammate, but it would have been a lot. And I realize this guy's been starved of first-team football. He's had injury issues. He's desperate to try to get his career back on the rails, and sometimes you try too hard. We all want him to get his career back on the rails for his sake, for the club's sake, or, even for his valuation's sake if he is to move on. But that was tough, and I I don't see him being part of the plans this season. Oh, and I have to say, the John McGinn thing, I'm shocked he got a yellow card watching it back. It was a 50-50 ball that he was entitled to go for. It was unfortunate what happened, but the reaction on social media was utterly embarrassing. Thankfully, there were Leeds fans who were coming out and saying the reaction is utterly embarrassing. Final thoughts on Leeds. First of all, odd that Neil Critchley had passport problems and couldn't even travel with the team to Australia. That's a bit weird and certainly not optimal. And Tom Culshaw steps in and runs the first team training. But you know who did show up? The Villa supporters. I mean, those were some scenes in the drinking establishments and, of course, at the game. And we know there's Villa fans in Australia, but that's not a small country. If you live in Sydney, to go follow the team over in Brisbane or anywhere else, that's a trek. And then how about the ones that spent I don't know how much and to go through the hell of traveling right now, flying 22 hours to follow Aston Villa? That's amazing. That's why I do the show. And part of the point of this tour was to expose Villa to a new audience. It's not just the team that's going to do that. It's the fact that people are going to look around and go, holy smokes, there's a lot of Villa fans here. Maybe I should support them. I am not going to spend an awful lot of time on this game for the simple reason that the Brisbane Roar are literally in the middle of their off season. They don't kick off again until October. God bless them for even playing in this game. So you got a team that's from the Premier League that's nearing full fitness and a group that's in the middle of their off season. And so you know all they're going to do is play in a low block, try to be organized, and force Villa to try to work around, over, or through them, which is not going to happen an awful lot in the Premier League for Aston Villa. They want to work on transition, pressing, counter-pressing, all those things. And that just never happened in this game. There was no tempo. It was just one-way traffic. It was a fitness exercise and nothing more. Like Leeds, the team sheet comes out and naturally everybody just assumes it's 4-3-3 based on the personnel, and you can't really blame them. 4-3-3 is a very broad structure that's flexible. Diego Carlos Sublime, Callum Chambers, consecutive starts and full value. But the club itself touted this 11 actually as a 4-2-1-3. You had Kamara and McGinn coming in and playing the 2, and Phil Coutinho playing there, and he was key in this game because against a low block, he's kind of the guy that needs to unlock those 2 banks of Brisbane 5, which is what it looked like. And if you thought Matt Cash and Luca Dean were high against Leeds, oh my goodness, there was no opposition or any threat behind them, so they were pushed well up the field. The guy I felt sorry for was Leon Bailey, because Leon Bailey is in this side to be powerful, quick, and to be electric in transition with his pace. Well, this was not the game for him. Maybe it was more suited for Bertrand Traore, but he was largely ineffective, I felt. One of the things that really intrigued me in this match was how many times Villa employed a short corner routine. In fact, I think they did it for every single one of those opportunities. And some of them were very good and dangerous, which makes me wonder if there was some kind of statistical analysis done in the off-season that told the technical group, hey, we need to deliver the ball from higher percentage areas or get the ball into people that are in the danger areas of the penalty box. And I liked it because we got to see the relationship developing between Luca Dean and Phil Coutinho, who are trying to be Grealish Target 2.0. And, you know, some of the play between them looks very, very encouraging, both exquisite footballers. So I'm excited about it because that was an area that Villa struggled last year. I could probably name all their corner goals off the top of my head. You had the Bailey one that was an own goal against Everton, Buendia late in the first half against Everton, and then Ezri Konsa scored against Leicester. I'm trying to remember others. So I'm all for it, and I do wonder if Austin McPhee is still the guy who is in charge of creating or overseeing the set-piece routines. Well, we need to talk about Cameron Archer again. I mean, he scores a fine goal set up by Kane Kessler-Hayden, and that was moments after he just glanced one wide, again set up by Kane Kessler-Hayden, who got me very excited a number of times and made me tingle. Needs to work defensively a little bit, but you could see there's a player there. And you notice how Cameron Archer without the ball is always shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Not just closing down defenders and trying to show them onto their weaker foot, but trying to make sure he's closing off multiple passing channels downfield. This guy's not just a one-trick pony who seems to poach goals, but always be in the dangerous positions when the ball arrives, which happened a lot in that second half. He's quick, he's powerful, he seems to be committed. He's also emotionless. And being emotionless is the sign of a ruthless clinician. And he needs to be in the squad come August 6th. So 2 games in Australia, 2 clean sheets to add to the one at Walsall, and I'm sure that defensive structure and shape and resoluteness at the back was a big talking point heading into preseason preparations. And if that's the platform that they're hoping to build from and they get that mentality right, not just as a back line, but as the group as a whole, well, then you're always in with a chance if you can get that moment of magic and then build from there as other teams are chasing games. I think that's the hope. I bet you anything that going into this game, the technical staff would have said, at the very minimum, get a clean sheet. So that's really encouraging. The other thing that's obvious, especially with Big Tim's performance and Kane Kessler-Hayden and others, the decision and choices are starting to get more difficult by the looks of things for Steven Gerrard. He said so himself. If he was pushed up against a wall and said, do you keep Big Tim for the start of the season? Right now, he said yes. And that's exactly how it should be. And then the big final test in Perth on a classic 1970s English muddy pitch. The one thing I'll say about this tour during the Australian off-season and winter, the pitches were a bit dodgy. This one today was bordering on unplayable, but you get on with it. It was still fun to watch for sure. And Aston Villa came out looking like, well, kind of looking like young Aston when Steven Gerrard shows up at his school unannounced to whisk him away. Kind of sort of excited, but a little bit terrified and not sure what to do. And what a beautiful moment, by the way. In any other circumstance, some stranger comes to your school, hugs you without ever meeting you, and then whisks you away in a white van. That would probably be deemed dodgy. But not when it's Steven Gerrard and the mighty Aston Villa. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Villa's formation or shape in that first half because it was poor. And we've seen that formation, the shape and the personnel numerous times last year, and I'm not sure I want to see it again. Man United had all the possession. They were so comfortable and were able to get around Villa so easily, particularly down their left, our right. Cash and McGinn were really challenged. And for the first time in this preseason, Boubacar Kamara was examined, and a couple of times he was caught dallying on the ball. The first time forced a big save out of Emi Martinez, and he's going to learn very quickly this is not Ligue 1 in terms of time. You don't have time to roll a gitane or swirl a cognac or butter a baguette. And I'm glad he learned that now because I think he's clever enough to have clocked it, and he'll store that away, and we won't see it again. I want to talk about the second half more because when you introduce Leon Bailey, you are completely stretching the opponent horizontally, and that changes the tone of the entire game, and United simply could not cope with that. But there were some other little subtleties again in the formation and personnel that I want to talk about here. I want to focus on the second half more because that's where things turned, especially in the first 15 minutes of that second half when the team lined up. This is how I interpreted it. I mean, you could look at this again and say 4-3-3, but I see 4-2-3-1, especially because John McGinn was getting involved on the left-hand side, and he loves to run at players. He can shoot, he can cross, he could do all of that kind of stuff, and he can still defend from that position. So can Jacob Ramsey, by the way, and I'm all for this because I think that's where he's best suited. But Leon Bailey, my goodness, this is like having a brand new signing. He's fit, he's refreshed. Steven Gerrard said his body language is totally different. This guy has just stamped his name onto the starting team sheet at Bournemouth. And good luck to Premier League left backs if he keeps playing that way. I like this formation, and you could see there's a number of players who could step in and do some of these other roles. Big Tim, Phil Coutinho, obviously, Danny Ings up front, Cam Archer up front. But one of many looks that I hope to see from Villa this season is precisely this 4-2-3-1, because it also allows the fullbacks to get involved, as I believe Steven Gerrard likes. The other one, and this could be awkward, Callum Chambers, who in my opinion has been the most consistent centre back during the Australian tour, and he caps off his performance and Villa's tour by scoring a huge goal that would have boosted confidence and belief, something that this whole tour is about. And what a ball by Leon Bailey, by the way. That was his second really challenging ball for the United defense from the very same quadrant. The first one, Ezri Konsa whiffed on because he didn't anticipate that it was going to come through. He thought it was going to be headed away, so he wasn't ready. His foot wasn't ready. It would have been a tap-in, and this is a complaint I have had for a couple of seasons. Our center backs need to provide more in the opposing penalty area, and Callum Chambers did. And now he's the only center back to play in all 3 games who has not been on the park when Villa has conceded. What surprised and impressed me about Chambers is his poise, confidence, and ability on the ball. His distribution and timing of distribution has been superb. So if you're Callum Chambers, you have every right to be annoyed or irritated with the gaffer when he taps up Tyrone Mings to start on August 6th, basically through reputation and tenure with club. Now, if Steven Gerrard is extremely brave and says, no, you know what? You've earned it, then that's how you have to sell it to Tyrone Mings. It's nothing that you've done wrong. It's what he's done right consistently throughout preseason. And that is a very good situation to have, because that's all we and the manager can ask for. There must be meaningful competition for places all over the park. The other thing that was quite obvious about this game and the tour in general is that Kane Kessler-Hayden is ready to keep Matty Cash honest at right back. I'm sorry to the Freddie Gilbert fan club, but you're going to have to disband. Kessler-Hayden has the pace and the ability to cause big problems. Yes, maybe he'll have to work on things defensively, but I think he is going to cause Premier League left backs problems. And the crazy thing is, including Big Tim and Cam Archer and others, seems to me like Villa's young players and young players globally are just becoming more brave. They're blocking out the mental reality of the magnitude of playing with and against elite players, which means that the average age of football is creeping down, and I'm all for it. I'll take any of our kids, by the way, against anyone that Manchester United put out. And I promised myself I would not get carried away and start talking about Aston Villa's class of 22, but I'm seeing signs that we have recruited, developed, and nurtured the right people and players with the right personnel. I'm looking at you, Mark Harrison. Off we go to Stade Rennais for the final tune-up of the season, which I'm thinking might have to be more of a 90-minute performance for the bulk of what is expected to be the starting lineup. Although with the 5 subs this year, you never know. Maybe there will be some extended auditions, and I will have a recap of that match for you, and maybe some bold predictions. And wouldn't it be nice if Aston Villa could start this season like they did 2 years ago, rather than going to Vicarage Road, Watford, and laying an absolute egg on opening day. Until that time, soak up the sun, be well, and as always, up the mighty.